Ms. Lotte Thor. I used to work in DR and TV2 as a news anchor. Now I am at Sasha SafeShare, and Sasha SafeShare has invented AI-powered image protection technology. I've been there for a year, working with public affairs and also with communications. So I am allowed just to say a couple of words about Sasha. And I actually wrote you a little poem, sort of a poem. So Sasha has a mission to end image abuse. Can you guys imagine a world where you can protect your images from being shared without your consent and even identify who has shared them? With Sasha, that vision becomes reality. Our technology empowers companies and individuals to take control of their visual content, ensuring privacy, security, and accountability in the digital world. So what I'm saying actually, ladies and gentlemen, is that we have an image technology which can, if we share image to each other, protect them with a digital stamp. And I myself is here. Our founder, Thomas Eriksson, is also on the stage later on. And we are so happy to tell you about what we created. And also we had a super great chance for Caroline Stage, which is the Danish digitalization minister. She actually invited us in October to present our technology to the EU Commissioner Hanna Virkkunen. So because we actually fit in the Digital Service Act. So I really appreciate if you want to talk to us, and then of course let's go for the press conference. So this is the agenda here. So first of all, we will start with Innovation Center Denmark for a report they wrote about AI-driven leadership. First of all, I would like Helene and Anders to come to the stage with your report title. ICDK is a government-backed agency that helps Danish companies, startups, and researchers. I guess you know about it, but you will have the report here presented.
My name is Helene Christensen, and I'm an applied mathematician and computer scientist turned business strategist with more than 15 years of global strategy consulting experience. Throughout the past 10 years in Silicon Valley, I have been working at the intersection of leadership, AI, and strategic foresight, and work with leaders and executives on how to navigate the future more clearly and make informed decisions.
And my name is Anders Christiansen. I work as an advisor to Danish corporates on AI from Innovation Center Denmark in Silicon Valley, where I've been living for the past 12 years. Initially, I started an AI company in San Francisco, and before that, I started a couple of companies in Denmark, and I was also CEO of some telco companies.
Great. Next one, please. Yeah. So with our AI-driven leadership initiative, we have set out to explore how AI is changing the very nature of leadership itself. And we do so through a transatlantic lens, looking at how executives across the Atlantic are navigating and responding to this new emerging market logic. Since the release of the Draghi report last year, it has become increasingly clear that Europe is losing ground to digital frontrunners like the US and China. However, Draghi notes that since AI is still a technology under development, Europe and Denmark might still have a chance to be drivers of an AI-driven growth path. However, we are facing a critical challenge in Denmark: adopting AI at scale. A recent report from BCG shows that only 16% of Danish white-collar workers are using Gen AI weekly at work. This is the lowest among the Nordics, and in stark contrast to the 54% across Europe and the 61% globally. This is a real challenge that we need to tackle. And looking at it as a Dane, I mean, we're one of the most digitalized countries in the world. We have a strong tradition in innovation. So I find it puzzling and quite frankly concerning that we have not really managed to catch up with AI. If we want to stay competitive, this is a gap we need to close.
So while Denmark's rank on the global AI index is dropping, if you ask American enterprises they claim, at least 95% of them claim that they use AI. And that's actually an increase over the past year of 12 percentage points. So this is why we initiated this project about AI-driven leadership, which focuses on industry dialogue across the Atlantic. And to start with, we interviewed 2 Danish executives. We started with Anders Hag, the CEO of Salling Group, a Danish retail giant. And what really stood out from the interview with Anders was that bold leaders also know when not to lead with AI. Anders and his team are keenly aware of the possibilities and the potential of AI, and yet they have decided to take a more cautious approach to implementing AI in their business.
There's almost like this mythical sense to it. It seems like such a big investment, and quite frankly, many executives are missing the ROI. So where do we find the value? And some of that might be related to asking the right questions. I mean, if we try to optimize and increase efficiency, that's not really where we see the top line growth. So, I mean, it's such a big dilemma, and people feel hesitant to engage. But we see that what is really needed here is to start building skills, competencies, and that's a way forward.
You laid out some really stark statistics, including the disparity of 16% adoption by the white-collar workers of weekly generative AI use. And you shared some interviews with executives and CEOs. I'm just curious what conversations you had with these white-collar workers. What were their pain points and points of friction that were obstacles to the adoption? Thank you.
So I think one of the interviews that we refer to is the interview with the CEO of Salling Group, large Danish retail giant. And as you will read or see in the report, I mean, he talks about one issue, which could be around the fear of failure, so the fear of experimentation versus, and we're not talking about right and wrong here, but there seems to be more fear of failure here than in Silicon Valley. And again, I'm not talking about right and wrong, where the technology interest and the willingness to try new things seems to be higher.
Yes, and so, are we allowed to just have one more quick?
So if you would ask ChatGPT, what would it say? Why is Denmark so bad on AI? What does ChatGPT say?
So what would ChatGPT say?
Yeah, it's hard to say.
I think
We should ask it.
Yeah, we
we'll
should ask it.
Yeah, we'll ask it later on. Or
Yeah.
maybe, did you already do that?
No, we did not ask ChatGPT.
We'll ask and then we'll pass it on later.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
That we created started for approximately 4 years ago. I myself I'm an angel investor, so I invest my own capital in helping entrepreneurs and innovation succeed from Sweden. We're pretty many of people like me, approximately 200,000 in the Nordics. We define angels a much broader perspective. We all are, in some case, the economy and the innovation are dependent on this group of people. But angels usually do the first investment and they follow on until you do an IPO or etc. But we also define board members and everyone else who actually helps entrepreneurs succeed as angels. There are approximately 6 million in Europe. We are a group of people that usually don't want to be visible. They don't want to be on stages to tell them that they actually invest money in helping others. So there's a group that is actually hidden from the public debate. So we create platform for this group. So we're actually the largest investor network in the Nordics now. We're soon about to launch in Europe through Davos Angels, which was another initiative that we created. And yeah, so we're coming to show you guys what we've built a little bit. And one thing to showcase actually the importance of this group of people is that the 50% of, like we showcased in earlier reports, 50% of all new job creation comes from companies younger than 5 years. And many of them are backed by angels. So I wanted to give you that kind of introduction to, and we want to showcase some of the highlights from this year reports together with BCG and Nicholas here. So thank you for that.
Cool. So I'm the numbers guy. So my name is Nick. I'm a managing director and partner at BCG. I do most of our work with growth equity and venture capital funds and growth stage companies. We want to talk a bit about where Europe stands in terms of VC investing and early stage investing and the angel support. So if we can go to the next page. Something that probably all of you felt over the last couple of years, VC investing was hit pretty hard. Uncertainty has increased a lot. Interest rates have gone up. Capital shifted away from perceived to be less certain investments, and 2024 was really bad. But it has started to rebound. We've seen capital shift away from early stage bets further to late stage, but we're hoping to change that again. And Europe is actually in a great position on that. If we can go to the next page. We do think that despite the uncertainty increasing quite a lot, I mean, the right-hand side graph here is quite impressive, right? If you think about it, US elections, COVID-19, the uncertainty has never been higher or perceived to be higher than it is at the moment. But we do think that there is, slowly the tide is turning. Interest rates are coming down, inflation is cooling, so there's a sign of recovery, and we think that we're at an inflection point again. If we go to the next page. The good news for Europe is that Europe is quite behind when it comes to relative investment. The US have been leading the way for a long time. But Europe is incredibly strong on early stage investing, also thanks to angel investors. In seed funding, Europe is actually globally leading and has been for a while, which of course means that a lot of early stage innovation, cutting edge innovation is actually being funded in Europe. We're just not really following through and bringing it to market, of course, partly because of the fragmentation, etc. If we go to the next page. We see that at the moment, there is some sectors that Europe is structurally advantaged, and maybe we can even just go to the next page. There is things like industrial tech, fintech, climate tech, where we think that Europe actually is in a very, very strong position for various reasons, because of the closeness to industry, because of financial centers like London, etc. But there is also a couple sectors where it's really a call to action. I think partly you guys have mentioned it as well. On AI, Europe is really far behind. On defense, Europe is really far behind. And a lot of that is tied to the fragmentation of Europe, but which means that there needs to be more collaboration, because otherwise we're always going to sit in silos and try to invest in things that end up being too small. So if we go to the next page. I think the good news is, as I mentioned before, we do think that Europe is primed for a rebound. We see dry powder increasing. We see that the foreign investor share is increasing. Europe is increasingly being perceived as a more safe haven in relative terms. But there is still a lot of things that need to be adjusted. We do think that the time to invest is now, but the risk appetite in Europe still tends to be lower. There tends to be a tendency to invest in proven business model rather than in ideas and founder teams, which of course to some degree makes a lot of sense, but sometimes there needs to be big bets and conviction to drive bigger things forward. So I think in summary, it looked pretty dire. We do think that we see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I think this group here will also be part of helping the upswing.
Do you also have
A couple of cents on that one is that we see that angels, the angels in numbers are increasing. The tickets are getting a little bit smaller, so they don't do the heavy bets anymore, because many of them went burned a few years ago. So we see collaboration starting off with COVID needed to actually happen. People became more humble and actually helping their portfolio companies. But the region of the Nordics is too small to be as fragmented as it is. I can give you an example. If I talk to an angel in Stockholm, to name drop two in Malmö or Göteborg, which is like the second and third largest city in Sweden, they cannot do that, even if they invest in the same ticket size or the same vertical. So that is why we exist, to actually bring them together on a high trust platform. And we do also physical events and the research report. This is for the 3rd year in a row we actually do it.
Yeah.
So we will publish the full report in October during Angel Prize that we actually do here in Denmark and in Stockholm and in Helsinki. But we just want to showcase you some of the things that was really interesting and fascinating in the report.
And thank you for that, guys. So that's the 3rd edition, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Is there any questions then, please? Yes, thank you.
Yes, Anderson from Innovation District Copenhagen. You've talked about fragmentation, you talk about Stockholmers not knowing what's going on in Malmö. European investors are notoriously investing in the tickets in their own countries. What do we need to do in Europe to get a greater amalgamation across the European nations? In your view?
Good question.
Yeah, very good question. I mean, it's all about, we see now with the Northvolt collapsing in Sweden, as you all know of, we saw that impact was a thing that you could invest it in and not happen to be a local. We see that in defense and dual use and resilience as well. It's a market that's of course about to boom or like really going. So I think that what's needed, of course, we need politicians to help out and somewhat also be a voice for this hidden crowd against politicians, towards them, and help them actually know, because angels see often things earlier than everyone else, but they don't want to be visible. So that's why we created a high trust platform, so we can actually get them to collaborate better. So I will be happy to show you guys what we built afterwards if anyone's interested.
Exactly, but I think it boils down to regulation supporting cross-country investments, because at the moment it is quite focused on accelerating domestic growth, and then also the visibility of potential investments in other regions, because at the moment it's still so dependent on individuals knowing the right people, the right access. So we do think that platforms where you can cooperate will actually help the visibility and enable some of that cross-country exchange. But it will be a pretty slow build. I don't think there is a silver bullet, unfortunately. But I think these kinds of forums show that there is a willingness to start collaborating more. We need to start in the Nordics first, and then slowly, branch out.
Any other question, please? Feel free. Yeah? Did you read it? Okay. Well, thank you so much, and you'll be around to have any other questions.
Just a final quote. We must stop celebrating selling our crown jewels to US. International VCs are coming in, which could be, in some case, necessary, but they usually have some kind of want to establish themselves overseas.
Yeah.
Denmark, which is the joint NKB and BCF Denmark. So we cover loans to startups throughout most of the growth journey, as well as investments, both directly and in funds. And in the other end of the scale, we do export financing as well. So it's a broad range of areas we're covering, and we're sector agnostic and focusing on actually helping new companies in new areas that are important for society to thrive and grow in Denmark. That's the main point of ICON.
Yeah. And here's your report from startup to scale up. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lotte. So I come from the analysis and strategy department of ICON, and I have the honor of presenting some of the findings from our most recent report from Startup to Scale Up, which is a yearly release we do covering recent trends and developments across the capital markets that are most relevant for SMEs and scale-ups. And I'd like to start by briefly setting the scene with the recent economic development in Denmark, as these factors have a huge impact on most capital markets, and they may help explain some of the developments that we've seen recently in Denmark. So after a period with very low growth rates in 22 and 23, we've seen the Danish economy rebound with stable prices, falling interest rates, and easing credit standards, and high growth rates in 2024 of 3.5% in GDP. And this momentum is actually expected to continue throughout 2025 with a projected GDP growth of 3% and an expectation of interest rates that will continue to decline.
So, and that being said, while all of these factors point to a mild economic upturn, we still have seen a lot of geopolitical developments, primarily the war in Ukraine and the US trade tariffs, and specifically the uncertainty regarding how these tariffs will affect the balance of supply and demand in various sectors in the economy has induced a lot of uncertainty in the market, which has affected many capital markets negatively. So keep that in mind when we go through these developments, as that's one of the key points that explain some of these developments. Turning to the venture market, we've seen relatively stable Danish venture investments throughout 24, both measured by the number of investments on the graph to the right, as well as invested capital on the left. Most of the activity has been concentrated in the very early stages, with pre-seed, seed, and early stage round accounting for more than 80% of all funding rounds in 24, and that was slightly higher than in previous years. Moving on to the first half of 25, we've seen quite a large decline in the activity. In the first half of this year, we only saw 55 completed investment rounds for a total of 332 million euros. That corresponds to roughly 19% decline in the number of deals and 44% decline in invested capital. We also saw that the composition of investors on the Danish life science or Danish venture capital market has changed over the past 18 months. International investors that exclusively invest in Danish companies, that meaning no Danish investors did participate in that round, that share has increased to 38% in the first half of this year, the highest share to date. Meanwhile, we also saw the share of Danish investors or funding rounds with exclusively Danish investors increase as well, accounting for 37% of rounds this year, the first half of this year. And correspondingly, this share of syndicates with foreign and domestic investors collaborating has decreased correspondingly. And this shift is actually closely linked to the development in round sizes. In the first half of 2025, we saw a large increase in the share of small funding rounds, below 1.3 million euros. If I remember correctly, it accounted for 35% of all rounds the first half of this year. And meanwhile, the share of large funding rounds above 10 million euro declined and accounted for only 16%. One of the more notable developments in the Danish venture market happened within Danish AI companies. In 2024, the number of deals in Danish AI hit a record level with 25 completed investment rounds for a total of 135 million euros. But in this year, we've already seen 24 funding rounds, almost matching the total for 2024. Meanwhile, invested capital has declined quite drastically, only reaching 35 million euros, which is roughly 34% of the volume in the first half of last year. And this is mainly due to most rounds being in the pre-seed and seed stages, which naturally decreases the average investment size. But this is also a reflection of the rapid development happening within AI. As these technologies are maturing, the development costs and implementation costs of models are decreasing, while the options for applications across industries have expanded rapidly. And this has led to an increase of new AI-based companies that entered the Danish venture market. When we turn to debt financing, we've seen a rebound in corporate lending in Denmark as well over the past year. From mid-2024, the growth rate in corporate lending turned positive again after a period with prolonged subdued lending activity, and it reached 6.2% by May this year. This happened while interest rates have been declining, prices have become more stable throughout the economy, and this has led most banks and mortgage institutions to ease credit standards towards Danish SMEs. They started doing this in the third quarter last year and have continued to do so throughout 25. This has eased the access to lending for most startups and scale-ups, given that you still have positive cash flow and can actually access these bank loans. And this is also evident from IFO's own lending and guarantee activity. After a small decline in 2024, we've seen an increase in the first half of 25, with our total loan and guarantee volume reaching 144 million euro. And this corresponds to about 56% of the volume in the first half of 24. So if these trends continue, we are looking at a positive year for IFO's lending and guarantee volume. As I'm nearing the end of my presentation, I'll leave you with these 3 key takeaways from the report. My presentation only touched upon a handful of the insights you'll find in the full report. Besides the one I've presented, you'll be able to dive into early stage financing, including grants, business angel investments, and crowdfunding, as well as developments within buyout investments, IPOs, and further insights in the venture capital market, including defense, security, and resilience. We have a section on green investments and life sciences, just to mention a few. So thank you for listening, and I hope you'll enjoy the report.
Nordic and Baltic tech ecosystem with Asia, Japan. We believe that the only way to make our mark in Asia is to stand together as united front.
Thanks for watching Indiavision. Give us a thumbs up and please subscribe to our channel. All comments are welcome. Hope to see you soon.